I thought 13's supposed to be the unlucky number. Ocean's 12 is directed by Steven Soderbergh. It stars George Clooney, Matt Damon, Brad Pitt, Julia Roberts, Catherine Zeta-Jones, and a bunch of other people. It is the sequel to Ocean's 11, and it is hot garbage. Now, before I start breaking things down and explaining exactly why this is a bad movie, I want you to get inside the mind of a screenwriter tasked with making a sequel to any movie. Because there's a lot that goes into making any kind of movie. But pick the top 4 things that are the most important for a sequel in order. In my opinion, the most important thing for any sequel is to make sure that it has the heart and soul of the original film. For Ocean's 11, that's the concept, that's the heist, that's the characters that have independent strengths. They all have a role to play that adds to the plot of the movie, that makes it feel smart and just amazing all around. The second most important thing would be the tone and the feel of the film, so you're talking about something smart, cool, collected, and it makes the audience member feel smart in respect. It makes them want to be a part of Ocean's team. The third most important thing is more of a glue, so something that's genre specific. For Ocean's 11, you're talking about comedy, but more importantly, subtle comedy. Something that's tongue-in-cheek, it's barely there, but it's a glue. It just fits in with everything else before it, so it just creates something balanced, something that feels complete. Now, because Ocean's 11 is also an ensemble cast film, casting is also important, but not as important as everything else. So that's the top 4 things that are important in order. Now, take that same list and reverse it. Swap it out, and you get Ocean's 12. The most important thing for Ocean's 12, for some odd reason, is the casting. It's about all these people, it's how well they work together, how much of a good time they're having, because just think about the one scene in the movie where Julia Roberts' character is acting like Julia Roberts. It's a funny sequence, but it has nothing to do with anything else plot-wise, which brings me to the second most important thing with Ocean's 12, the comedy angle. Now the comedy is one of the most important things. It's no longer a glue that's subtle, but now it's in your face. And the comedy itself, the humor, it's a completely different kind of humor. It is slapstick. Just think of the one scene in the beginning of the movie with Don Cheadle. He's yelling at his manager about rap music because the rap music is getting bleeped out, and he says, that's unrealistic, blah, 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 and he's cussing at his manager, and when he's cussing, he's getting bleeped out by a phone ringing, which is an inconsistent pattern for a phone ringing, but that's besides the point. It's basically a parody. It makes no sense. It does not feel like Ocean's 11. The third most important thing, obviously, is the tone and feel now. But now, because it's no longer as important as it was in Ocean's 11, it feels aimless, and it feels directionless, and it feels confused. So that's the tone of the movie. You have no idea what's going on because it never took the time to tell you. The last thing on their mind, for some odd reason, is the heist. The concept of the movie. It is no longer a heist movie. I mean, there's a heist in there, kind of, sort of, but it's not about that. The audience is never clued in on what the heist even is, so it's really not. So it's no longer about the heist movie, and it's no longer about the characters serving independent roles. It's no longer about them being important to the plot. It's more important of who's playing them versus who they're playing. It makes this movie bad. It's basically the opposite of Ocean's 11. Ocean's 11 was good. This is bad. But more than that, the entire plot is about returning the money they stole the first time around. The entire thing was just a bad idea and not very thought out. But let's go ahead and break it down. People category goes over the acting, characters, casting, importance, and chemistry. As far as the acting goes, it's basically the same as the other one. It's fine. It's not great. It never makes you go crazy with, woo, it's fantastic, because it's not like that. It's just fine. It's never bad. It's never great. 2 out of 4 possible stars. Character-wise, like I said, it doesn't really focus on them as much, but given the fact that they have a history of being great characters, you can still kind of tell that they're trying to maintain a little bit of that. They never make it to that level, but you can at least tell that's the general direction they're trying to get at. 3 out of 4 possible stars. Casting-wise, like I said, the most important thing in this movie is the cast. They know it's an ensemble cast movie, and apparently that's the only thing they care about. 4 out of 4 possible stars. The importance of the characters and their independent roles in the film, like I said, it's not about that. There's barely anything there. For the most part, they all blend in together other than the main characters. So 2 out of 4 possible stars. Chemistry-wise, I mean, they're fine together, but it's not like it was last time. You can tell that they're having a good time, but because everything else is so distracting, chemistry doesn't seem like that important for the film. 2 out of 4 possible stars. The writing categories next goes for how the dialogue is, how balanced it is, story depth, originality, and how interesting it is. The dialogue is fine, it's average, it's simple. You want more from a heist movie because you want it to feel smart, and part of feeling smart is having great dialogue. Not the case here. Everything's average, everything's typical. 1 out of 2 possible stars. Balance-wise, the beginning of the movie does give you an idea of what the movie's going to be about ultimately. It kind of sidesteps from that throughout the movie, and it just completely feels aimless until the very end, and because of that, I give it 1 out of 2 possible stars. Nothing deep or meaningful about the story. The story depth gets 0 out of 2 possible stars. Originality, no, there's nothing really that original about it because it's not really about anything in general, so 0 out of 2 possible stars. Interesting, of course you're interested to see it because it is a sequel to a very loved movie, but your interest dies suddenly when you're watching because you're like, what the heck is this? 1 out of 2 possible stars. The BTS category, behind the scenes, goes over the visuals, cinematography, editing, advertisement, and the music and sound. Visuals is fine. I don't think it's as spectacularly visual as the director wants it to feel, or as some other critics might even point out. I don't think it is that impressive. Just typical to me, so 1 out of 2 possible stars. As far as visuals, maybe they're talking about the cinematography because the cinematography is still pretty good. As far as just camera work is very well done. Cinematography gets 2 out of 2 possible stars. Something's going on with the editing. I almost never give editing 0 stars, but I am this time because there's something wrong with it. There's a scene in the very beginning that deals in a bank with George Clooney, and it's edited together in a way that makes no sense to me. I don't know if they were going for a visual aspect, but it doesn't make sense because of how the camera was shooting it. Editing gets 0. Advertising. I think there was some false advertising here because whenever you see an Ocean's movie, you expect something very specific and you feel like it should be super smart and you feel like you're in on it and all this. That's not what Ocean's 12 is. It just feels like a reunion movie with a bunch of actors coming together and having fun. That's not what was really advertised, so this gets 1 out of 2 possible stars. Music and sound. While it does have some elements where Ocean's 11 had as well, it's not always there, and it has some weird music choices as well that feel random and distract from what's going on. So this gets 0 out of 2 possible stars. Narrative arc, you know that. It's introduction, inciting incident, obstacles, climax, and falling action. The introduction does a poor job of trying to introduce you to all these characters again. In a way, it does because it has Benedict, whatever his face is from the first movie, going to meet everybody for the first time, but you have no idea of what's going on in their lives up to this point. And you kind of want to know because they robbed $160 million worth in the last movie. What are they doing in their lives? It doesn't do a great job of introducing you to their lives up to this point. It just wants to get things going. So this gets 1 out of 2 possible stars. The inciting incident, for the most part, is there. The inciting incident is mostly what the movie starts on. So 2 out of 2 possible stars. There's only really one obstacle in this movie. It's their mission from the get-go. And it's like it's aimless after they learn about their mission until the very end. I didn't really feel obstacles in the movie. 1 out of 2 possible stars. Climax, it kind of feels like everything else. It's not as great as it probably thinks it is. 1 out of 2 possible stars. Falling action, resolution, whatever. I would say it comes to a new sense of norm. Doesn't really calm down. So 1 out of 2 possible stars. The entertainment category goes through how rewatchable it is, how much of a good time you have while watching, your impulse to buy or own it, your impulse to talk about or recommend it, and if it sucks the audience in, if it's engaging or riveting. Rewatchability? Sure. I mean, if you're watching the series as a whole, you're probably going to have to watch this. And for that reason, I'm going to give it half points, 1 out of 2 possible stars. Otherwise, I'd probably say, eh. Do you have a good time while watching? Not me. I was specifically kind of disappointed while watching as a whole. So this gets 0 out of 2 possible stars. Impulse to buy or own this movie? I would even say as a collector's item with the rest of the series. I really don't like this movie. 0 out of 2 possible stars. Your impulse to talk about or recommend it? 0 out of 2 possible stars. Is it engaging or riveting? I would say partially, but not completely. Obviously, there are certain elements in the movie as far as the very little bit of heist it has that is important to watch. So I would say 1 out of 2 possible stars. Otherwise, it's aimless completely, and there's really no reason to watch a scene over another one. So let's talk about the specialty category. What do you expect to see out of Ocean's 12? As an Ocean's 11 franchise, you expect a few things. Obviously, you expect it to be a heist movie. You expect the use of characters and their skill sets to be really important to the plot. And you don't get really either of them here, so 0 out of 10 possible stars. As a sequel, was it necessary to be made, and does it add anything new? That's the problem with heist movies. They don't really need to be made into sequels because they tell a complete story in the first movie. So that doesn't get any points, but does it add anything new? No. I mean, even the very little bit of plot it has is related to the first movie, is about returning the money they stole, which makes the first movie feel stupid on its own right. 0 out of 10 possible stars. As a heist movie, how is it? Oh my god, I already told you, it's not a heist movie. 0 out of 10 possible stars. Halfway decent. Did they make the movie that they intended to make from the get-go? For this, I'm probably going to say no. I mean, it's hard to say what they were thinking when they were making the movie, but obviously it wasn't about a heist, because if it were, that's what the whole thing would be about. Instead, it makes these people look stupid because what little heist they do is usually foiled by someone or other that's technically smarter than them, but acts stupider. And the whole thing just feels like a parody, and that's not what this movie franchise should feel like. It should feel cool, and it should make you feel like, yeah, maybe I'll go on a heist sometime, because that's what cool people do. And that's not what this movie does. So I'm going to say 5 out of 10 possible stars. If we add up all those points, we get 33 out of 100 possible stars. 33% for Ocean's 12. It's garbage. It's hot garbage. Stay away from it. Watch Ocean's 11 all you want. Stay away from Ocean's 12. Next up is Ocean's 13. Subscribe to me. Like me. Hit that bell to be notified when I come out with my next review. And all that fun stuff. Tell me what you thought about Ocean's 12 in the comments down below. And then until next time, guys, peace out.